Hello and welcome to an episode of Atomic Vinyl Reviews. My name is Jacob and today we've got another unboxing video. Now I just ever so slightly started tearing the package on this thing, but that's okay. The reason I started tearing the package was I actually started filming this video a second ago and I thought it was the 64 NECA Godzilla figure because I also ordered that one. Turns out, this is the King of the Monsters Blast version Godzilla, whatever it's called. The one with his atomic breath and all the blue sloppy paint all over him. So let's have a look at what this figure looks like. So they packaged this quite poorly in just very, very thin plastic just around the box. Which I wish they did better because, you know, you can already see the box is not in the best shape. It's, you know, not the worst box I've ever received, but is dinged up quite a bit in some places around the edges. So compared to the last box, I like this one more despite the dinging up because he has this the Godzilla King of the Monsters poster on it, which I love. I actually have a big version of the poster off in the corner there, and my cousin actually got me the Polish version of this poster as well because he went to Poland for a while and got me that as a present when he came back for a bit. So that was awesome. So I like this poster here, very blue, that classic King of the Monsters look. And on the back we have pictures of the figure, as you guys can see, as well as, you know, the other figures in the line, Rodan, Mothra, Godzilla, the normal version, and I think we might be getting a blue tinted Mothra, because I'll bring in the normal Mothra in a second to compare to this thing. So the first thing opens up the front, and there is the figure. Comes with a great big picture of the figure on this side, just looking very, very blue, and then there's the actual figure, and you know what? Doesn't look half bad, just going by what I can see here. So in traditional NECA style, very opaque sort of blue color, doesn't look like there's any transparency to him, unlike the Monster Arts poster version, which I don't have and I probably won't be getting unless I find a really good deal on it. Although I do plan on getting the Burning version, which I've already pre-ordered actually. So yeah, let's open this guy right up. No point in messing around with like opening him from the bottom or anything. I'll just do the top because this box is already a bit fucked, unfortunately. But that's okay. I do really like the fact that NECA have changed to these boxes as opposed to that old clamshell packaging, which I really hated. I didn't know why they had the Bandai Creations 54 as a picture on it and all that weird sort of stuff. Bizarre, but these new boxes are really nice. Ugh, smells very, very fresh. So here's the figure outside of the box here. You can get a, well, still in the box a little bit, but you can get a bit of a look at him. You can see very, very blue, just slopped all over the back, but in person it does kind of convey that effect. Now in the back is the real selling point of this figure. I mean, only if you don't have the original. If this is like the first one you're getting, then the whole figure is the selling point. But for anyone who just wants a nice, awesome blast effect, this is going to be a really cool way of getting one. So it just comes off a little bit of plastic like this. And we have this cool blue blast effect. And let's just look at it in the light. It is a bit transparent. Not as transparent as some of the other effects I've gotten. The plastic it's made of is somewhat pliable, but more of a hard plastic feeling than the regular sort of NECA figure plastic. So hopefully it'll go in focus. There you guys go. It is a really nice sculpt. I like the real burstiness of it, although it has this weird cone shape at the end, which is going to look a little bit odd next to certain things when you do try and use them in a display. And these little burst bits are a little bit bent, but nothing you can't fix with a bit of pushing and maybe even some heat if you really, really wanted to get it perfect. But sculpt-wise, looking pretty nice. Got a bit of a whitey wash in the middle just to help brighten it up. Is it a little metallic? It might be. It just might be the shine of the plastic, I think, but it has a very typical sort of beam effect look to it, which I like. We'll put that to the side, and we'll get the rest of this guy out of his packaging. So he just seems to be tied in with one of these little pieces of wire, and his tail just has a little piece of plastic, which is actually holding both the beam and his tail, so that's cool. We'll just undo that. We'll get this guy freed from his little plastic prison. Yes. There we go. And he should pop right out. There we go. Love the chunky feeling of NECA figures. It's a good feeling of a figure. Doesn't feel as fancy or as a, you know, Monster Arts or something like that, but it does. I do really like something that feels solid. Like, you don't feel like you're going to be able to break this thing in any way, shape, or form. And oh, this is interesting. Aside from just having the blue, he actually has some metallic purple on him as well, which is really odd, but an interesting touch. Let me just sort of fiddle around with his joints, because he does feel a little bit disjointed at the moment. See, he does have that purple on his arm there, which is really odd. Maybe he got mixed up with the Shin Godzilla Blast version line, and they kind of gave him a quick spray over of purple, and then were like, yeah, well, just ship it out, it's fine. I'm not sure I recall seeing that in any of the other figure reviews. His eyes are cool. They got like blue around the eyes, that really sky blue color, and his actual eyes are painted in silver. The inside of his mouth, the top of his mouth is painted in that same blue, but it also has more of that purple metallic color in there. So come on, get in focus. His eyes, you can see that little ring of blue around his eyes, and they're done in a silver, the actual eyes. So that actually looks really effective, like his eyes are glowing. I'm sorry the lighting isn't perfect, but you can see the top of the inside of his mouth is that sky blue. The rest of the inner mouth is kind of done in that purple color. That's pretty odd, but it does look effective. I do actually like that hint of color. So the main difference between this figure and the original is the spines. I don't know how I feel about the paint on the original. I'm sorry I don't have it on hand at the moment. It's actually in my cupboard, and I have a bunch of stuff in front of that at the moment. So it's a little bit hard to get to, but if I do a full review, or if I do a whole video like on all the 2019 figures that I own, which I might do, that could be a fun thing to do, then I will definitely compare this guy to the other color version. But at the moment, it basically looks like they painted him in a color more similar to, where is it? The 2014 Godzilla figure, which is mostly the same figure, as you guys can see. It looks like they just painted him in that dark color, and then they went over him very, very liberally with blue along the back, and did some slight purple metallic highlights and some other little colors here and there. And overall, not a bad figure. The color really kind of makes it pop. Even though, I don't know, if you didn't know that this guy's spines glow, I think if you saw this figure, you'd just be like, why is that weird Godzilla-ish thing spray painted blue across the back? You'd be a little confused. But actually seeing the movie and knowing that he has an atomic breath effect and that he glows like this, it makes a lot of sense. And isn't a bad look. So, let's get to the rest of him, because he does actually come with the beam, which is still in here, along with his tail, which we'll try and quickly put on. So, again, this figure has the fully segmented tail, which I really love. These tails are so much better than that bendy wire crap that they used to do with these Godzillas. I'd wish they would re-update the older figures, because like we got the 2014 one with the bendy wire here, which sculpt-wise looks great, but articulation-wise, I don't like messing with bendy wires. And same goes for like the 54 figure they did, and that horrible 84 figure that they did, and those are the Heisei era Godzilla suits that they did. They all had the rubbery bendy wire tail, which I'm not a fan of. But this one, the ball joints, can be a bit of a fiddle to try and force in, but you can always use a heat to get it to work really easy. But we'll see if I can just ram it in like this. And yeah, there we go. That was actually pretty easy. Got his full tail, so the blue does run down all the way to the tip. It pretty much just covers the whole top of the tail, which is really odd. I don't know if I like that, but I just like this guy for variety, really. So I'm kind of mixed on the paint, but I do enjoy it. So I'll spend some more time with him and kind of decide what I think about him. But considering that most of our Godzillas look like this, at least our Legendary Pictures ones, which are completely flat gray like this Monster Arts here, having one with a big burst of color like this one really does help. It does make him stand out somewhat compared to this guy here, which is really nice. And let's get to the main feature of this guy, which is, like I was saying, the blast effect here and the atomic breath. So the atomic breath is pretty similar to the Monster Arts atomic breath. It's still that really thin sort of breath, which I find odd because in the movie he did have, especially in 2014, he had a really sort of wispy, crappy atomic breath. But then in the King of the Monsters film, they did give him a much more powerful looking one. And I got the feeling that this one still feels a little bit thin for this guy. Although I do like it. I have no complaints about this breath. It does look a little bit cheaper than like the Monster Arts one, for example. You can see the seam lines on it. But the plastic it's made of and the way it's painted is actually pretty nice. So there you can kind of see it's just painted solid white at the tip, and you kind of can see it's just this pretty plain clear plastic with a bit of white at the mouth here, and at the mouth it does have a little hole on this end where it can fit in his tongue, which is a good feature to help this thing hold in. And I can see it has little teeth markings in it as well, so I'm assuming those go for the top jaw. So I'm just gonna clip it in like that, see how it plays out. Seems to be working pretty good. Okay, so it actually does hold in without any stand, which is one of the biggest benefits that the NECA figures have with their beams. Their figures actually, because they're built so solidly and out of, thick solid plastic, they often can actually support a beam in their mouth without a stand, which is really cool. So combined with the dorsal spines, it does really look like he's shooting out a beam here, which is really awesome. The blue of the beam does really make this weird purple across his right arm really stand out, which is odd to me. Like I was saying, maybe this is really a factory glitch. Whoops. Tell me guys in the comments below, does your figure have purple across his arm? Because mine sure does. I don't know if it's coming out very clear on camera, but he does have a big purple stripe. So my beam fell, but that's okay. And the kind of idea is you'd have the beam pressed into this thing, you'd have it in his mouth, and then you'd be shooting something. And that looks really cool actually. So I am pretty happy with that. We'll bring in the Monster Arts like I did earlier. You can see pretty much the same height. Sculpt is definitely better on the Monster Arts, but not by too much actually. So that is actually really good considering the price of the NECA is a lot less than the Monster Arts. Not by that much actually where I'm from, but in the US it definitely is. You can see why a lot of people would just opt to get the NECA figure. I'd be really curious to see this guy next to that the new poster version Monster Arts that they are releasing. So, because they're doing the same effect, but that one actually utilizes clear plastic, and I just like the Monster Arts sculpt more. So I'd imagine that one would be really cool. But definitely for the price of that one, this one just seems like a good deal. So like I brought in earlier, we got the 2014 Godzilla, which is the sort of bare bones non-glowing figure version of this. Of course, I love the 2019 spines a lot more than the 2014 one. I was never a big fan of the 2014 design, but they really knocked it out of the park with the additions they did for the 2019 one. Again, the figures are almost identical in most other ways. I think they really did just take the same sculpt and just add the spines and change up maybe some minor details like the feet and the tail tip and stuff like that. So they're pretty similar, so if you got this one, you really know what to expect with this one. I don't have any other versions of these NECA figures that have the beam, at least, well, actually I do. I'm kind of lying. This one did come with a beam, but I actually have that posed with another figure at the moment. But I mean, the Blast versions that are all painted blue, I don't have any of those ones. But here we have the Godzilla, sorry the picture's kind of dark. Here we have the Godzilla 1962 figure next to this guy, and this 62 is really chunky. I love the sculpt of this thing, apart from some minor details. But both of these figures are really good Godzilla figures from NECA. They just shows that they're starting to really amp up their stuff, which is a really good sign and get some good good results. The last couple of figures I can compare him to is actually the big Bandai King series Godzilla 2019 figure, and I brought this in because you can see he's got the glowing effect on his spines as well. It's a lot more subtle. They just use metallic blue because these Bandai figures usually have very stripped back paintwork, and the sculpt on them is usually very plain as well. So just a kind of comparison between the two. The NECA is much more blue, but I still really love this Bandai vinyl here. The actual sculpt detail is kind of similar. There's more detailing on the NECA, even though it's smaller. But for a Bandai vinyl, it's still pretty nice. And yeah, it just gives you guys a nice comparison between the two. Both are really nice figures, but personally I kind of got to give it to the King series just for its size. It's so awesome. Especially since I couldn't get one of those Jack-specific Godzilla 2019 figures, which I really bloody well wanted, but we don't have them here in Australia, and to import them costs like just as much as the figure, so it would, you know, cost like like twice as much as a NECA figure for that Jack-specific figure, even though they're meant to be cheap figures, so it's kind of a rip-off, so I didn't go get it, but I would still really try and like want one if I could find a good deal on it. Before we finish, I'll bring in the Mothra and the Rodan NECA figures. So here they are. The three, well, there should be four, but NECA doesn't want to make a King Ghidorah for some reason. Still really disappointed about that, especially since the Monster Arts King Ghidorah isn't screen accurate. Its heads are all too big, and the facial details are all off, and the necks should be a bit slimmer at the top, and there are a couple of other minor details of it, but I don't know what's wrong with that one. It's still a gorgeous figure, but we really need NECA to just put out one. I know it'll be expensive, but their Pacific Rim line was as big, if not bigger, some of those figures than they would be to scale up with these for a King Ghidorah. The fandom would just bloody well love it, so I think NECA should really do that one day. But for now, we got Rodan. So he's got a nice wide wingspan, but his body is of course much smaller in relation to Godzilla because he's a flying kaiju, and that's just how they scaled him in the film. These guys look great together. And we got Mothra, same deal. She has an even smaller body, but really nice big wings, which I love, and they're kind of translucent, and that's really awesome, and she comes with this cool stand. Rodan also comes with a cool stand, but I didn't pick it up just now, just to show you, because, you know, I've done a video on that. You can check that out. But yeah, these figures look really great together, and like I said, I wish NECA would just put out a King Ghidorah, because their Godzilla, Legendary Pictures Godzilla line is really good, because they can make great figures, but their weakness is generally in terms of their sculpt, if they're not trying. A good reference for that is their 1984 Godzilla figure. That one was a bit of a mess. But they've, like I said, they have gone a lot better. And these figures have always been good because I think they literally used the CGI data from the film to 3D print these things. And that's how they make these figures from the CGI Godzilla films, so the Legendary Pictures films. And that's how I get these so perfect. And yeah, I really just want to see them do more of the kaiju. I'd love to see them do some of those other obscure kaiju like Mufusala and, what was he called? That weird mammoth thing. Not Mastodon. That's a band I like, but yeah, you guys know what I mean. Just the other kaiju from the film. And a Muto! We haven't got a Muto from any figure line that's decent. It's weird, but yeah. Anyway, sorry this unboxing has been a ramble for you guys. It's not one of my best videos. It's summer in Australia, and I'm still kind of recovering from some pretty bad sunburn, so it doesn't look like it. It's on the rest of me, but it does give you like sunburn sickness for a couple of days after. So I'm sorry this video has been kind of a ramble. But that's my little unboxing of the Blast version of the Godzilla 2019 King of the Monsters figure, and I like it. I'd say if you have the original, this one's not like a must-have, but if you do really want a figure that pops on your shelf, especially if you are after some cool beam effects, and you can get this guy for a good price, which they are starting to show up online for, at least in Australia now, I do recommend them. So yeah, you got a nice Godzilla, beam effect, all that, and a cool little box. Not as cool as the boxes that we've been getting for our Showa versions here, like we got the 62 box, and then probably my next unboxing is going to be of the NECA Godzilla 1964 figure, which the box for that looks freaking gorgeous. So I'm really excited for that one. That's all for this figure review. May all your vinyl be a radiated vinyl. Over and out.